Following up on yesterday's clip, we've got some interesting news today that dropped about a U.S. congressman proposing a bill to block the Federal Reserve from creating a CBDC. Welcome back, everyone. Well, yesterday we covered the BIS and Augustus Karsten's ridiculous comments, and today it looks like we're getting something that's on the other side. So let's dive into it. Tom Emmer, the Republican House Majority Whip, presented a bill on Wednesday aimed at prohibiting the Federal Reserve from issuing or utilizing a central bank digital currency to govern monetary policy. Today I introduced the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act to halt efforts of unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. from stripping Americans of their right to financial privacy, Emmer wrote in a tweet on February 22nd, listing 3 points. Prohibiting the Fed from issuing a CBDC directly to anyone, barring the Fed from using a CBDC to implement monetary policy and control the economy. And point number 3, requiring the Fed's CBDC projects to be transparent to Congress and the people. Except as specifically authorized under this act, a Federal Reserve Bank may not offer products or services directly to an individual, maintain an account on behalf of an individual, or issue a central bank digital currency directly to an individual. The document stated that the Federal Reserve Board must consult each Federal Reserve Bank and report to Congress quarterly on any studies related to U.S. digital currency implementation or potential CBDC pilot programs. Digital versions of the dollar must uphold our American values. Warning about what he believes is the potential for creating a surveillance tool. The concern here, some argue, is that CBDCs may go against the freedom and privacy guaranteed to the people, giving unprecedented control and power to the government. U.S. lawmakers previously expressed concern that giving this amount of control to the Fed would result in the government gathering sensitive transaction information. So I just want to stop right here. The Fed has nothing to do with the government. Okay. The Federal Reserve Board, like none of that has anything to do with the government. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation. So don't get me wrong. The government already gathers sensitive data and they've already proven their incompetence on several occasions. But here we're also talking about the Federal Reserve essentially gathering all of this private information. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz introduced companion legislation to a January 2022 bill drafted by Emmer, which banned the Fed from developing a direct-to-consumer CBDC that could be used as a financial surveillance tool by the federal government, similar to what is currently happening in China. In December, Emmer announced that he led an inquiry into Project Hamilton, a collaboration between the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and the Digital Currency Initiative at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or for the people who don't know, MIT, to research the development of a US CBDC. The more we learn about the Boston Fed's work on Project Hamilton, the more we have become concerned with the lack of transparency, especially as it relates to their partnership with the private sector. The Tuesday bill was supported by other Republicans, including French Hill, Warren Davidson, Andy Biggs, Mike Flood, Byron Donalds, Pete Sessions, Barry Loudermilk, Young Kim, and Ralph Norman. Biggs commented, "Grateful to join this effort. These unelected bureaucrats are driving us to an authoritarian state. That can't happen." Loudermilk added, "Proud to join forces with Emmer on legislation to keep the Fed from issuing a central bank digital currency. The Fed should be focused on its core mission of stable prices and max employment, not tracking our transactions indefinitely." Meanwhile, just a week ago, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco announced a vacancy for a CBDC developer as it aimed to explore the cost and benefits of the potential technologies for a CBDC. Sounds good, right? Sounds good, but we know that we can't trust politicians, right? There's groups, there's businesses that lobby, right? That lobby Congress. So they're not entirely working for the people per se. They get money from corporations, aka lobbyists. So look, that aside, this legislation doesn't really have anything to do with maintaining our privacy. It really has to do with maintaining the moat from the banks. That's really what it has to do, or I should say maintaining the moat for the banks. because essentially what they don't want is this private corporation. They're not going to say it, right? Because it undermines the narrative. So you're not going to sit there and say, as a congressman, necessarily, some congressmen will, but for the most part, they will not say that the Federal Reserve is a private corporation, and they don't want them issuing money directly. So interestingly enough, we're seeing this very strange type of battle forming between banks, government, and the Federal Reserve. I think that no matter what, they are not. It doesn't matter whether it's Congressman Emmer, whether it's Warren Davidson. I know that they say the nice words. I don't think they're looking out for our best interests. That they're looking out for their best interests. And if it just so happens that our message and our battle is good for their numbers or their perception, then they're going to use it. But the reality is that this has nothing to do with our privacy. This, to me, in my eyes, simply has to do with maintaining the moat for the banks and making sure that the banks don't get completely cut out of the loop.